Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host for today. And those who have been following along for the last week know that we've been on quite a little adventure with Greg Nance. So Greg first contacted us from Shanghai while he was hours away from flying to Vietnam for a 100-kilometer ultra marathon through the jungle. We managed to connect with Greg 3 times from the run, including the start line where he took us through the start, and we were able to start the race cheering him on, which was pretty darn exciting. We got to hear a little bit of Greg's stories from along the way, and now he is finished. He is back in the US, and he is going to share with us his experiences, maybe some stories, and then we're going to get to ask him some questions, which I know our classrooms are excited to do. So Greg, your microphone is on. How are you doing?
Doing great, and very, very excited to be finished with the big adventure and to have a chance to share some stories here.
All right, excellent. So thinking back to our connections from the start line to talking to you still in the evening as you were running, that ankle was giving you a little bit of trouble.
It was. That was one of the hardest aspects, was managing the physical pain with that, and then the mental challenge that comes with that, because it's all about how you react to those obstacles, and that was a huge challenge, start to finish.
Yeah, and you shared with us from Shanghai before you left that nighttime creatures were on your mind a little bit, especially insects, and it sounds like you may have had an encounter or two along the way.
I did have a couple encounters, and yeah, it was my first time seeing a snake out on the trail. I've run a few of these, never seen a snake. And I've never swallowed a dragonfly before. And those are sizable animals. So that was an adventure as well.
All right. Well, Greg, I know I'd love to, and I'm sure the class would. If you want to tell us a little bit about, I think it was about just over 24 hours it took in total.
That's right. 24 hours, 8 minutes, 47 seconds.
All right. Well, can you tell us a little bit about the day?
Absolutely. I've actually prepared a few photographs and a little presentation. So I'm going to switch into the PowerPoint. I'll roll through the presentation, and then I'd love to open it back up to questions and to share more.
That sounds awesome.
Great. I'm going to share my screen here. Excellent. Can you see my screen here?
Yep.
Perfect. So, rumble in the jungle. I want to look back and also look forward. As a refresher, I headed to this place. This is called Sapa, Vietnam, and it is totally magical. These rolling hills, tea plantations, wonderful forests and jungle with a bright burning sun, as I learned all too well during the race. I knew that it was going to be hard. I told you guys about this before the run, that the jungle terrain paired with the distance would be really, really tough with the roots, the rocks, the streams, all that. Running through the dark, starting at 10 p.m., I knew that was going to be a difficult aspect as well. I knew that the chance for rain was quite high, and you have to be prepared for that. I knew the heat and humidity would be really, really, really difficult, especially for me, given that I'm from Seattle, where we just don't have heat or humidity like that. And then the big hills, lots of climbing, over 14,000 feet, 4,300 meters. I knew there'd be obstacles. So you plan accordingly. I showed you guys my gear before I traveled. You bring a rucksack, your backpack, with lots of key stuff, ranging from the food that you'll eat to the water that you'll need, to trekking poles to better climb those hills, to the proper footwear, which have cleats on the bottom so you have good grip, to compression shorts and compression socks to keep your legs really warm and healthy, to a headlamp and sunglasses so you can see even if it's really sunny or if it's dark, to a hat and a sun-prepared jersey as well. I also had the BGAN in my bag so that I could better communicate and connect as we went. So you got to have the right preparation, which I felt like I did, the right training, and then also brought a lot of the right stuff. I arrived here. This is Hanoi, Vietnam. It's the capital of Vietnam in the north there. And it's about a 7-hour drive from this wonderful place. But before I actually traveled, I wanted to look around. So I traveled to a spice market. This is this photograph here. It smelled amazing, all these great spices there in Vietnam. And then I headed here. This is close to the bus stop in Hanoi, where I grabbed a quick coffee before boarding a bus for this place. This is Sapa, Vietnam. And it's really the one big town in the northern jungle near the border of China. So it's a 6 or 7 hour drive north of Hanoi off into the wilderness. This is a big lake with big hills and a beautiful sunrise there to greet us on Friday morning, just 10 or 11 hours before we were scheduled to start our race. I picked up my race bib. Your bib is actually just a fancy way of saying your number. So I was number 1089 in the 100-kilometer run of the Vietnam Mountain Marathon. Underneath my left thumb there, you can actually see the topography chart. I like to actually take the race course map with me, and those big ups and downs, those signify the hills that we'd be climbing. And I like to just have a sense of that. So I picked that up, and then I headed to the start line where actually I broadcasted. So many of you got the chance to see us. This is me taking a little picture right before the race gets started. At that moment, as a gentleman named Isaiah from one of our classrooms asked, "How are you feeling?" I said, very, very nervous. And it was true. I was anxious. I was nervous, a lot of butterflies. So I'm smiling here, but honestly feeling very, very nervous as we got to the start line. The starting gun fires, and the first thing I notice as we start running, not only is it very, very dark, but it's extremely hilly. That little 6% that you see, that signifies the grade on the trail that we're going to be running through. And 6% was actually quite light. It got up to 8%, 10%, 12%. So it got very, very, very steep. And I quickly felt that in my ankle. As Joe mentioned, my ankle was not feeling very good. I had a bone bruise on my ankle. And so every step, especially on rocks or on roots, you really feel it. And so, boy, I really noticed those hills quite early on. Here's the topography chart once again. So initially we ran downhill before then running uphill, downhill again, uphill, and then lots and lots and lots and lots of uphill. Really, really tough going both down and up. It really tires out your legs, your calf muscles, your quadricep muscles, your back muscles. All that's to work extra, extra hard when you're carrying a rucksack and trying to cover the distance. Here's a picture of me at about 4 in the morning, 6 hours in. I'm just about to broadcast, our first broadcast from the checkpoint. And I've got a bit of a crazy look on my face because I've just seen a snake cross the trail. First time I've seen a snake. You have a headlamp. You see the little lamp on my head there. And that's so that you can see the trail in front of you. And it's a really, really small little spotlight. And it's basically to make sure that you don't step off a cliff or you don't roll or twist your ankle on a rock or a root. And every once in a while, you see something that you don't quite expect, like a snake crossing right in front of you. Luckily, I think the snake was more afraid than I was. And so the snake slithered off before trying to cause any trouble for me. I also ran through a cobweb. And anytime you run through a cobweb, you know that there's a spider not too far away. I don't like spiders, so I was quickly patting my hair, I was patting my neck and just trying to kill the spider if it was on me. I didn't actually notice. And so I think he had fallen off me, or maybe had just not even been on his cobweb at all. But in any case, not much fun. I didn't like that part at all. And so that rattled me a little bit. As I mentioned in the introduction here, I also got a dragonfly that flew right into my mouth. And when you're running, you're breathing hard. So and so I was breathing in as the dragonfly flew too close. And actually, by the time I even noticed, I had basically taken him all the way down my mouth into my throat, and it swallowed him. And the only thing that came out when I started coughing was one wing. And so I knew it was a dragonfly because it had a dragonfly wing that came out there. As I kept running through the night, I heard a variety of bats buzzing by me. And it was a small flock. It must have been 4 or 5 of them. And with my headlamp, I would actually see them kind of buzz in front of me and then twist around me. And there's not much you can do because they're so quick. And I just got used to it because it was probably 20 or 30 minutes of these bats just trailing me. And I'm just running knowing that once the sun starts coming out, these guys will disappear. they'll leave me alone once the sun comes out. So I just kept moving, and eventually they were quite friendly with me even. Finally, the sun comes up and it reveals an amazing series of landscapes. You have huge hills that I'd felt from running on them, but it's another thing to actually see them. You have these beautiful landscapes, which quickly became apparent as we went. Wow, amazing, amazing landscapes. These rolling hills, these tea plantations, these rice fields, and then these jungle hills. All very, very beautiful. And of course, in the night, you don't have a sense of that. You only know what's right in front of you. So the sun coming up was a huge morale booster. I felt much, much better as this happens. I also noticed, though, that it starts getting a lot hotter. With the sun coming out, it goes from maybe 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 or so, all up to 20 to 25, pushing 30 and above really, really quickly. So that made me a little nervous because I was already quite tired, already sweating quite a bit. I also noticed that the birds changed. So the birds at night in the jungle are quite different than the birds during the day. I noticed a ton of different insects and wildlife, different kind of mating calls and territory calls and things during the night. And actually that shifts going to the day. And it was interesting to hear the first roosters crowing, to hear the first beasts of burden, them calling out as the sun's coming up as well. So that was really, really fascinating, the wildlife as it shifts going into the next day. I took a video here, which I'll try to play. So it's the first light here in Vietnam, and it is just really, really beautiful. Whoops. As you keep climbing, you get more and different views, which are just really astounding. Because again, you've been recovering all this ground, and it's just wonderful to really see it and to see all of the work that the farmers in the local community are doing. Finally, we're making progress. You get to different checkpoints. These are different rest stops that you'll visit that you'll actually get fuel. So this is where you get more water. This is where you'll get a little bit of food and fruit and things. I'll actually play another video here.
Here we are, checkpoint 6, about 60 kilometers into this thing. And morale is decent, but folks are exhausted. Same with wounds. I am so tired, and my ankle is actually fire down there. I'm trying to stretch it and take ibuprofen and all. Wow. Tender, very tender. Now we gotta find some more things. Let's get down to business.
As you can see, very, very hilly. We were all really tired. All of us are, worried about the sunshine. And as you heard me, I kept complaining about my ankle because it was definitely hurting as we kept going. That said, though, it was such a beautiful day out there that I really tried to get my mind off the pain of my ankle and the pain on my back and focus on just the beautiful scenery. There's a little river in the right-hand corner of your screen there. There are these beautiful fields in the middle, then these big mountains and the wonderful clouds above you too. So I try not to dwell on the pain, but to really enjoy the beautiful natural environment I was running through. I also tried to goof off a little bit. So this is me making a silly face in front of a big hill that I've just climbed down. There's another big one right in front of me. And so I'm a little nervous. I'm definitely feeling it, but trying to have some fun as well. There's another big hill and me being silly once again. I got really, really lucky that the clouds came in and shielded me from the sun, but those clouds also brought a lot of rain, which made the course even harder to climb. When those hills turn to mud and the rocks get all slick, it's even more challenging as we go. But I made some new friends out there. These are a few village children that you actually pass through a variety of villages, and it was really, really terrific to meet some little guys that were excited to see some guy from far away running through their town. And they were silly. They wanted to run next to me and they wanted to take a picture. So I got a nice selfie in here with them. And they gave me a ton of energy as I really needed it because I was so tired by this point. And these little children were just so full of energy, and it definitely rubbed off on me as we went. So these are all little guys from Vietnam's hill country that were excited to see an American running through their town. I was also having fun though. So this is a nice jungle shot. I I was having a lot of fun, especially as I got closer and closer to the finish line. Initially, it feels just, there's so much distance to cover, and your mind can't even get around that. Your body is so exhausted. But as you get closer, you realize, hey, I can actually finish this thing. And that made me quite happy as I went. And step by step by step by step, you actually make it happen. Here's me crossing the finish line, getting a photo with the Seahawks team flag, our 12 flag. And I'm just all smiles and super, super happy. A couple minutes after you finish, it goes from feeling like a total dream, which it felt like in this moment, and you start to feel the aches and pains. So my back, you feel the fire in your back. I felt my ankle, and also felt my feet. This is a shot of my feet just a few minutes after finishing, and oh boy, it's my feet were on fire during the back half of the race, and I understand why. It's just full of sores and blister as I went through, and so nothing good about that. As I get home and realize, wow, like I'm in a good amount of pain, and there's a reason why. As I go, I initially was just so happy to finish. Then I'm in a little bit of pain. Then I turn my attention to recovering. And anytime you push yourself to your limit, and it's not just running an ultra marathon, it could be a tough soccer match or a basketball game or a tough hike in your hometown, whatever it is, I think there's a basic formula that I like to follow. And number one, it's about catching up on sleep, because your body really best heals itself when you're sleeping. And you need to give yourself the right fuel. That's rehydrating. That's a fancy way of saying drinking a lot of water. Nutritious food and protein. Protein is actually how your body on a cellular level will repair itself. So you need lots and lots of protein. You also want to get some light stretching and movement going to really get the blood going. That will help to repair all these tired muscles, all this fatigue. And then if you can, using ice and heat alternatively is a great way too. So I took a hot shower. I also used ice to try to repair my muscles. That really helped me get much stronger and much stronger faster. And if you have the ability for a massage, whether from mom or dad or from a professional, that can be really, really useful as well. That was always top of my mind. I was so hungry when I finished the race. Actually, I went out for pizza. This is one of the 2 big pizzas that I finished. There's also a mango smoothie there because I was desperate for just some nutrition as we went. And so I restocked on that, and I also treated myself to a little massage. You can see my feet are, they're both dirty and swollen from the race. And dipping them in hot water was a little painful, but was good to get a little bit of blood going there, to then clear out a lot of the debris, a lot of the lactic acid, and a lot of the soft tissue debris that just hangs out in your legs and in your feet after a big challenge. But at the end of the day, I was all smiles. That's me with my medal there. And it's fun to look back on a huge challenge that you've overcome and to smile on that, because it took a lot of hard work to even get to the start line, to then race through, to make it to the finish line. I was certainly very, very happy as I went. I learned 3 big lessons. The first is that obstacles are opportunities to become our best self. So that we got to prepare for those big challenges ahead, because they're going to be hard and we've got to prepare for them. I told you in the kickoff that there's going to be jungle terrain. So I'd been training with off-road trail running. I told you that I knew running in the dark would be hard. So let's prepare with morning madness, our 4 a.m. training runs. One thing I didn't fully account for was how I would have to crane my neck and bend forward to see the ground in front of me. And that actually got my neck really, really, really sore. So by the time the sun's coming up, my neck was very, very sore from crouching over all night. I knew the tropical rainstorms could happen, so I did my rain dance. Whenever it would rain in Shanghai, I would actually run through the rain to train in that. Then heat and humidity, I knew would be a big deal. So getting my heat wave sauna cardio training, and that way I'd be prepared as best as I could. And then I knew those hills would be brutal, so I was training about 75 daily flights of stairs and then parking garage sprints. I did all that, but boy, it was still really, really hard. That said, obstacles are opportunities. You get stronger when you have to push through challenges, but you can only do so if you've prepared for those. Ultimately, only about 60 of us all told were able to finish. And that means about 50 of us did not finish. So barely half, like 55% made it through. And because of that, I think a lot of those that made it through, they'd really trained for the challenges. And many of those who did not, just they hadn't fully trained for a lot of the challenges that they'd face. So the second big lesson I learned is that we've got to break our biggest goals into the smallest milestones. And here's how. When I was training, I kept thinking about 100 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 100 kilometers. But really, you don't run 100 kilometers, the full 100 kilometer. Instead, I broke it down into 10 checkpoints. There'd be 10 different checkpoints, 10 aid stations and rest stops. And I started thinking instead about that. I'm just running to the first checkpoint. Now I'm running to the second checkpoint, now to the third checkpoint. And that was a better way to approach this big challenge. Then I shifted from those 10 checkpoints just to the next hill. And whether that was running uphill or running downhill, that was a lot easier for me to get my head around because, hey, it's just the next hill. Keep going, keep going, keep going. But eventually, that got too big as well. And so I couldn't just think about the next hill. I had to shift from that hill to the next boulder. And so instead of 800 meters, that might be just 100 meters. But eventually, I got too tired to do that. And so I had to shift from the next boulder literally to the next step and the next breath. And there were a few times where I had to literally stop in between steps, take a deep breath, take another deep breath, and to just use those deep breaths to get the next step in. Because, boy, it was hard. It was very, very, very difficult for me. And I was exhausted. I'm in pain. It's just a huge challenge just to take that next step. So take your big goals and break them into small milestones. And that's not just for athletics. That's even if you're trying to get a good grade in science class. Well, don't think about the A that you want to earn or the 100% mark you want to earn. Think about the small milestones. Is that doing your homework on time? Is that paying really close attention during class? Is it talking to your teacher after course to clarify a key question that you had? Think about the big goals you have and then breaking them down into small daily action. That, for me, is a formula for success across life. So break those big goals into small milestones. The third thing is that it's all in your head. We have to believe in order to achieve anything. As I told you, look, my ankle was hurting, my back was hurting, my feet were hurting for most of the course. In fact, out of the 100 kilometers, I was probably in pain for 95 of them. A couple did I feel really, really strong without any pain. But if I had dwelled on that pain, or if we dwell on how hard the challenge is, we're going to give up. So I kept telling myself, it's not that bad. Hey, yeah, sure, my ankle hurts a bit, but just keep going. Who cares? I kept telling myself that over and over again, literally thousands of times out there. I said, I don't care. Keep going. It's not that bad. Keep going. And what that taught me is, look, our mind is much stronger than we realize. If our mind says keep going, then our body can keep going. But if our mind says, hey, just give up, no matter how strong our body actually is, we will just give up. The only limits that can stop us are those that we place upon ourselves. And so when you're getting really, really tired, or there's a big goal, you're not sure you can do it, the answer that you tell yourself, yes, I can, or no, I can't, that will be definitive. If you say, no, I can't, then you won't be able to. But if you say, yes, I can, then you will find a way to make it happen. That is one of the most important things that I've learned in all of this, is that the only limits that can stop us are those that we've placed upon ourselves. So I've finished this big challenge. I'm feeling still a little tired, still trying to recover afterward, but I'm always thinking about what's next. And for me, I want to try a new challenge, and it's called the World Marathon Challenge. It's running 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, starting in Antarctica, a place called Novo, running a marathon there, then flying up to Cape Town, South Africa, running a marathon there, then flying over to Perth, Australia, the biggest city in Western Australia, running a marathon there, then flying up to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates in Asia there, running a marathon there, then flying over to Madrid in Spain, there in Europe, running a marathon there, then taking another flight to Barranquilla, Colombia in South America, running a marathon there, and then up to Miami here in USA, North America, for the final marathon. So aiming to do all 7 of those marathons within 7 days on those 7 continents. And my purpose in doing that is not only for a really big challenge, but also to raise money for charity. I run, as I told you during our kickoff, because it's a big challenge. I love doing it. I love meeting great people, traveling around the world, and I love using it as an opportunity to try to inspire young people to get outdoors. And I'll be doing it called Run One, RUN1.org. Run1.org, and that's a charity that I'm working to build to get young people outdoors, hiking, enjoying the outdoors, running outdoors, and just getting active, living healthier lifestyles as we go. And I want to use the World Marathon Challenge to do so. I also want to invite each of you to follow along. If you have Instagram, I'm on there. If you have Twitter, I'm on there. And I just launched a new Facebook for Run One, and so would love to get plugged in and to follow and to have you follow the adventure and to connect to better keep in touch as we go.
All right.
It's been a there we go. My video's back. I hope I covered a lot of ground there in those slides, but I wanted to give you a better taste of Vietnam and what I'm up to. And I'd love to have a chance to answer your questions and to keep the conversation going here too.
All right. Awesome, Greg. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for sharing your learning. And wow, that's a big goal for the next step. That's pretty amazing. All right. Let's see who's joining us today. And let's get a classroom up. So our first classroom is joining us from Thunder Bay, grade 4th, Mrs. Barch. And I will turn your microphone on.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Erica.
Hi, Erica.
Number 7.
What's your favorite part of running?
My favorite part of running is I love the feeling of moving because it shows you how beautiful the world is. It shows you how strong you are, where you can actually move around with just your own strength. And then you can meet all these great people, see all these beautiful places too. And as you run, you get healthier and you get stronger as you go. And so for me, all of that together makes running just a really amazing experience. Thanks for your question, Erica.
Awesome. Our next group is grade 5-6 in Renfrew, Ontario with Mrs. Lefebvre. Let me turn your microphone on.
What do you think the hardest part of the race was?
Yeah, the hardest part for me was running through the night, as I basically felt huge hills. I was in pain, so my ankle and my back aren't feeling good. That was really, really tough. And it's night, so you're not even enjoying the beauty of the scenery out there. But the hardest part of all was actually sunset on this the day. So it was about 6:30 p.m. I've been running for over 18 hours, and now it's getting dark again. And I'm so tired. I'm just ready for a big meal. I just want to sleep mentally. All of the mental challenge there is the hardest part. And so keeping your mind right, staying focused on the big goal, that's the most important part in my view.
All right, great question. We are moving over to Sayreville, New Jersey, grade 6 with Mrs. Hawknos. Let me turn your microphone on. There you go.
Hi.
Wow.
That's Emily and that's Amy. And first of all, we'd like to say thank you for sharing your experience with us. And
Awesome.
our question is, what emotions or feelings were going through your head as you approached the finish line?
Yeah, I got a little emotional actually. So it was such a hard challenge, and I felt like the finish line was just never ever going to come. And when I started getting closer, and it was like 5 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 2 kilometers, I saw these spotlights in the sky. They actually put these huge lights to guide you into the finish. And I remember just being kind of overwhelmed there and just feeling so kind of happy and grateful that I was gonna have the chance to actually finish this. I never thought it would happen for me. So, as I got closer and closer, you feel the noise. There's actually a crowd there cheering you on. They're telling you to go, go, go. And as you literally run across the finish line, it feels like a dream. it felt like just a dream. And I had to pinch myself because it didn't feel real. And the only reason I knew it was real is they gave me a medal around my neck and I could feel the medal. And then I also could feel my ankle and my quadriceps were very sore. And so I knew that it wasn't a dream, that it was very real. And yeah, it felt just amazing. And so that's how I felt. And thank you for that beautiful sign. That's incredible.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, New Jersey. Let's see. Our next group is joining us from Kitchener, Ontario. Mr. Flanagan's grade 8. Let me turn the microphone on for you. There we go.
Hi, I'm Kiana.
Hi, Kiana.
How are you feeling about your performance of the race?
Yeah, so my initial when I qualified for this race back in June, my aim was to run it in 16 hours, and that's kind of like a top 5 finish in the race. That was my aim, so that was my big goal. When Joe and I got talking, I shifted my goal from, hey, I want to do like really, really fast time and a good place, and I basically wanted to have a great adventure and to try to share that adventure. That became the big goal. And then I kind of hurt my ankle last Monday. So the goal shifted again, which is like, oh, like I just got to work to finish this thing. It's going to be really tough. So I ended up running it in 24 hours, 8 minutes, 47 seconds. So way off my initial goal time. And then I got 50th place, 5-0. So 45 places off my original aim. But that said, I think you always have to look at the circumstances and the context by which you're competing. And I had a pretty big pack, about 11 pounds actually, after I fully stocked it with water and all my gear, including the BGAM. And with the ankle, I wasn't feeling it. I didn't have the strength I needed. So, Kiana, great question. My short answer here is I actually feel pretty good about it because I think it would have been pretty easy for me to just give up at a bunch of places, and I felt like giving up actually because I was just in a lot of pain. But I wanted to keep pushing through, in part because I wanted to have a real story to share with each of you. And in life, you're always going to face obstacles and difficulties and challenges, and it's always easier just to give up. But I think you get a lot stronger as a person when you actually push through, and you grow a lot as a person when you have to push through that. So my advice, whether it's the 8th grade science fair or your history project or whatever else, there will be times where you want to say, hey, Mr. Flanagan, this is too hard. I want to give up. But that's actually where you're going to learn most and grow most and become the best student you can be and the best person you can be. And so I hope that that advice is applicable to you in your life, because I have to tell myself that every race, you're always going to be feeling down, but keep going.
Awesome. That's such a good point, Greg. Like you've shared with us so far, that really your body can handle a lot, and sometimes it is your mind and getting that mindset and pushing through when the pain does first hit. And like you showed us, great things happen when you push through that barrier, that pain.
Hey.
All right, our next class is, let's see, there we go, Guelph, Ontario, grade 8, Mrs. Hoekstra's class. Let me turn your microphone on.
Yes.
Hey Greg, my name's Dixon, and I wanted to ask, what have you learned from this race that you're going to use in your next races, like the 7-continent race?
Hey, thanks, Dixon. Yeah, the one big thing I learned, I want to test more of my gear beforehand. So I've been really, really busy at work the last like 2 months. A lot of travel, a lot of work stuff come up. So I wasn't able to test a few things. So for instance, I had these new trekking poles, and one thing I did that was really annoying was I kept twisting as I would go into the mud. And when you twist a trekking pole, it starts sinking basically, because it's a setting whereby you can adjust it. That was one small thing that gets on your nerves. It's like, oh man, like my trekking poles, I have to keep adjusting them. Just annoying. I ate a couple things I hadn't eaten before, which weren't tasting very good. So it was really hard to eat them. They were too dry. So testing more of my gear beforehand is one thing that I always try to do, but basically got a little bit too busy in the last couple of weeks, so I wasn't able to. That's number one. Number two, one thing that really paid off actually was studying the topographical map. that really, really helped me to know when the big hills are coming and just mentally to prepare for that. I'm going to be definitely doing that for the World Marathon Challenge, learning more about the ups and downs in the course, looking at the predicted temperatures and rainfall is really useful too. That really kind of keeps you mentally focused, and it helps me to know what the big challenge is ahead. So thanks for your question.
All right, we just had a little freeze on this end, but it seems to be fine. Okay, and our final group is Mr. Plan's group from Sioux Falls, grade 4. So let me turn your microphone on.
Jacob.
There we go.
Hey guys.
Hi. My name is Jacob.
Forward.
How could you compare this race to others? How would you rate this race?
Yeah, first of all, cool Aaron Rodgers jersey. He's a great quarterback. Yeah, and Sioux, it might be Vikings country there, right? But yeah, so for me, good question, Jacob. So every race is different, and it really depends a lot on your training and preparation and the course conditions themselves as well. So I would rate this race as one of my hardest, and part of it is the ankle issue I've told you about. Part of it's having a very heavy pack. I think if I were in full condition with just my water and my food like usual, it would still be at one of the tougher, but it would be kind of average, I think. I would put it probably 4th in terms of difficulty out of the 10 I've done with the conditions I told you about. The hardest I've done, I think, is perhaps this Malaysia race, which was 200 kilometers, and it was extremely, extremely, extremely hot and very, very, very hilly. I just did this race in the Philippines, which was 100 miles, and I've done a 250K as well. So the 3 that were harder were all longer and had more extreme heat. I'm really a wimp with the heat is the short answer. And so if you want to tire me out, give me a lot of heat, and then I'll wilt like a flower. But I'm trying to train for that and get better at it, because I want to be able to run in the tropics really well. So yeah, Jacob, it was a tough race. I'd put it 4th out of the 10 overall. So definitely on the difficult side, but somewhere on the kind of average band as well.
All right, awesome. We're going to visit the classrooms again if you still have another minute, Greg.
I do.
And but I was wondering, did that crunched up bag of Doritos work out for you?
Oh, so well. Yeah. So I always keep that in reserve. And so I was about 80 kilometers in, and I'm super hungry. So your body, it's really weird because you burn so many calories, but I have no hunger out there. Just like your body basically is saying, hey, Greg, what are you doing? Stop running. We're not going to feed you anymore because we want you just to stop running. I think it's what my body's trying to tell me. But the one thing that I always hanker for, that I'm really, really hungry for, Doritos. And so I bust it out and I just wolf it down, and it's so delicious. And so I eat that, and the salt in it and the sweetness as well just fires me up. And so I had a lot of energy for a couple of those big hills from kilometer 80 through 90, which is really, really difficult mentally. And it's a big reason why I ended up getting this little medal here. I think without those Doritos, who knows?
All right, well, let's jump back to Mrs. Barch's class. I see someone at the camera. Mrs. Barch's class, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Austin.
Hey, Austin.
Those who are unable to finish the race, what happens to them?
Yeah, so it's basically you hopefully are able to make it to a checkpoint, because at a checkpoint there'll be a doctor and there'll be a crew, volunteers, and you'll have food there and water there to make sure that you're okay. And then if you're near a road, you'll actually get taken by a car. And if you're not by a road, you basically have to hike out. And so that's the worst, because you've just given up and then you still have to get out. So that's no fun. I've done 10 of these. I've made it to the finish 9. The one time I didn't make it, I basically had bad food poisoning. And luckily, a doctor at the checkpoint at mile 86 in a 100-mile run, he was asking me questions, Austin, and it basically said, "What's your name?" "My name's Greg Nance." "Where are you?" Where I was, because I was so out of it, and I was in Hong Kong, but I didn't know where I was. He put me in a car, so I got driven back to the finish, basically driven to the finish, and I just lay down and just sleep for a little bit because I was so exhausted. So it's a terrible feeling. No one feels good not finishing. You feel relief, but also maybe a little bit of embarrassment. I felt embarrassed when I didn't finish, but you also feel you're happy it's over because it's just such a terrible experience when you're just in pain and hurt. So yeah, hopefully you get driven out is the short answer, but sometimes you have to hike out if you're out in the wilderness. So thanks, Austin.
All right, Mrs. Hakano's group in New Jersey, your microphone's on if you have another question.
Hi, my name is Mason. I was wondering, how did your mindset change once the rain set in?
Yeah, so the rain was tough because the first 3 minutes of it were just amazing because I cooled down. I was way too hot. So I was like, wow, this is great. I'm cooling down. But then after just a couple minutes, the trail gets all slick. It gets muddy. The rocks get really slippery. And all of a sudden I realized, wow, this is not good. My legs are already really, really sore. And I'm just one small misstep away from hurting myself really badly. Twist this ankle, I could break it or I could sprain it. If I twist this knee, the same deal. So my mindset shifted. I started taking smaller steps, and I started really, really focusing in on my feet and making sure that I was taking the right step over and over again. So the mindset shifted where I said, look, I got to really focus on every small little detail here. And luckily it was helping me cool off because I was afraid about getting a heat stroke, which is where you basically lose control and you're too hot and you overheat there. So I was glad that risk reduced significantly, but then there was another series of risks with my legs. So focus on every step. That's it.
All right, back to Sioux Falls. Mr. Plan's class, your microphone's on.
Hi. Okay, yeah.
Hi, my name is Brody. Is there anything that you wish you would have packed in your bag that you didn't have?
I think I wish I had packed I didn't have. One thing I was craving out there is, so I have a bit of a sweet tooth, as you guys have gathered, and I wish I'd had York peppermint patties and also Gushers. So those were two things I was really craving when I was out there running, where you need energy, but you have no hunger. And so it's the things that you really crave can be a little strange. And so for me, it was just these sweets that I really, really wanted. I also wanted pretzels, really salty pretzels. And as I say that, I'm getting hungry right now as I say that out loud. But so those are the things that I wish I had brought. I also I bought some sunscreen back in China, and it wasn't. It actually was very low quality. I basically, as soon as I started sweating, the sunscreen sweat off. So my neck is really, really sunburned right now, and it's painful, and it's not good for you to get sunburned either. So I wish I'd got good sunscreen. So I'll make a note back to one of the previous questions to buy some good sunscreen that doesn't just bleed off as you're sweating.
All right, and I think that's a great point, is mistakes aren't always a bad thing as long as you learn from them.
Precisely. I like that.
All right, Mr. Flanagan's class, your microphone's on.
Hi, my name's Natalia, and how would you compare the challenge of your next goal to the challenge of Rumble in the Jungle?
Hey, Natalia, good to see you again. The challenge will be, it'll be a little bit different. So with the 100K, this will be hillier and hotter probably. It will also be a longer, just continuous distance. The challenge of the World Marathon Challenge will be you run a marathon, then you have to sleep and travel in between each session. And so I think I will be more sore starting out each race. And so I'll be really, really, like my legs, my quadricep muscles, my calf muscles will be really, really sore. And then it'll be difficult. I won't have enough sleep probably because you're getting on a jet and then flying to the next race. And I'm not a very good sleeper on airplanes. I'm okay, but not the greatest. So I think that will be a huge challenge, especially on race number 3, 4, 5, 6. During the middle of that, that'll be a big mental challenge. So it'll be different, but still really hard. Thanks for your question.
All right, and one more visit to Guelph, Ontario, to our grade 8s with Mrs. Hoekstra. Let me turn your microphone on. There we go.
Greg, how many kilometers is your 7-continent, 7-day race in total?
Good question. So I got to do some multiplication here. So a marathon, I think in terms of miles. So for miles, we're talking 150 plus 14, so 164 miles all told. Yeah, it'll be over 200. I'm forgetting. I think it's 42 or 40 kilometers in a marathon. I've been doing that 7 times straight through. So yeah, I think 42. Yeah, 42.1 might be. As an American, I think in terms of miles usually, although the 100K is an easy one to get your head around. But as I mentioned to you, the way that I approach this will be, I won't even think about all 7. I'll think about literally like how far to the next water station on this current race. Because if you think about all 7 or all of the kilometers, it gets too crazy. And then your mind starts saying, oh, I can't do it. So I try to think about literally the next step. And like, hey, just take another good next step, another good next step. And that keeps me much more focused. And so that's how I train as well. Just the next workout, just the next step.
All right. Well, Greg, this has been an awesome experience. We haven't really tried something like this before, where we met before, afterwards, and sent something out with you for the in-between. So I think it's been a blast, and it's been really fun to have a consistent group of classrooms following along the whole way.
Yeah.
I think that's been pretty cool too.
And it's been my pleasure. I've super enjoyed this. It's been fun to reflect on both the pre, the during, and then the post with each of y'all. And I hope one thing that you've heard during all of this has inspired you to get outdoors, to set bigger goals for yourself, and to think big and also think small too. The small daily actions are how you achieve your biggest goals.
Awesome. Well, I know we definitely want to follow along and see how things progress towards the next challenge. And you know that we'd love to do this again if we can figure out a way to do it all across the world. So that would be pretty cool.
Yes, it would. That'd be awesome.
All right. Well, boys and girls, one more time, thank you so much for following all the way along. I'll make sure Greg sends me all his contact details, like the Twitter and the new Facebook page he started, to make sure that everybody can follow along as well.
Thanks so much, guys. Really, really appreciate it.
All right. Microphone's coming on one more time if you guys want to give a nice big goodbye and thank you, and then we'll sign off for today. So here we go.
This way.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much, classrooms. Greg, can't thank you enough, and continue that recovery, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Hey, can't wait. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.